people to consider that aspect of the gold and silver story. Whether they're stacking or not is irrelevant at this point. This is really more about keeping your freedom.
The video you're about to watch is all satire. Do not take it seriously at all, you fucks.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for those naysayers out there who say that this is an artificial shortage, I disagree. You have a few of cases, I believe it's Argentina, maybe, or Bolivia or something like that are shutting down silver mines because of the ecological issues with mining silver there.
It was also Mexico did open pit mining ban, or at least a new open pit mining, not the existing.
Yep, that's correct. And they were under lease for 2 years with China. That got done in, I believe, 2020 or 2021. And now Mexico doesn't want to share its silver with anybody anymore. And there's a reason for it. Go ahead.
I say, nor should they. I mean, if the silver is currently manipulated and devalued to the point, and we're going through a transitionary period to a new currency, and the dollar is going to lose its peg for the world reserve currency status, then Mexico is going to have to hold on to every country is going to have to hold on to their natural resources so that they can be valued or revalued after the fact of how much that country is actually worth. And it comes down to the resources of that country, not exactly the dollars or paper currency that they print in terms of value. It's always comes down to resources. That's why wars in the past were fought over resources. It's just simple.
Josh, you hit the nail on the head. I've talked about this. Mexico is going to be a powerhouse in whatever comes after the dollar because they have silver, they have oil, they have all kinds of resources there that are needed, absolutely needed. Mexico may very well become an economic and energy powerhouse in the world.
So you're saying that the U.S. is going to attack Mexico?
Yeah, I know, to get all their silver. We need solar panels. We can't use oil anymore because, our carbon footprint is, just too big. We're destroying the planet. First of all, I don't subscribe to that nonsense. But if they're going to force everyone into solar and alternative energies they don't even compete with oil. I mean, there's no way to actually have them compete. Have you guys heard the statistics on one of those big wind turbines and how much oil it takes to build one of those, how much energy it takes, how much electricity it takes to build one of those things?
And they murder a lot of birds.
Yeah, they murder a lot of birds. That's a fact.
And their half-life, their maintenance half-life, or their full half-life it's garbage. It's like you get like 5-10 years out of them before they need to get replaced, and then that whole energy consumption process starts all over again.
Well, you see, that's the problem, because we're talking about real-world numbers now for how much money it costs for a city, a town, a state to buy one of those wind turbines. It will never produce the amount of electricity at today's prices to actually make up for the $5 million that they invested in that turbine.
Yep. That's why in SimCity it was always easier to build the coal plants.
Yep.
That's right. It was.
But that was realistic, though. I mean, the coal plants are that. And by the way, I want to tell you recently, I don't even remember exactly when this was. I was in a Twitter space, and Elon Musk was in there, and so was RFK Jr. And by the way, when I talk to these folks, it's not like an endorsement. So I don't want you guys to think I'm endorsing anybody. The Missouri Freedom Initiative does not endorse anyone. Now, we may once in a while say, it's a bad idea to vote for this person, but we won't say it's a good idea to vote for this person. We operate differently than that. But RFK said something very interesting. I was talking with, basically it was along the lines of nuclear power, because I was, curious what his aversion was to nuclear power. And he didn't talk about toxic waste or anything else like that. He said, cost per unit of energy. And I said, well, they're supposed to be cheap. And he says, that's because they're heavily subsidized. Most of those costs are hidden. And they do not come out in the commercial rates of power. And he did say unequivocally And he said this in front of a lot of people. Coal plants are definitely the most cost effective form of electricity generation we have. Now, I understand that we didn't get into some of the really wonderful ones, like, turbines that run with water. So hydroelectric is definitely, without a doubt, the most cost effective you'll ever get, but you can't do it everywhere. What you can do everywhere is what we were discussing. So he talked coal, and he says he doesn't like coal, but coal is definitely the most cost effective one to do.
Wasn't
Nuclear
that
is
the fastest too that could be set up? Because nuke can take like 7-10 years minimum, right, to get that set up.
Oh,
Yep.
more than that. A
And
lot of regulations for that.
Well, yeah,
yep.
assuming assuming that you had the 5-7 year head start on top of that with regulations.
You got to get a government approval. It goes through the Department of Energy.
Yep. Well, Nuclear Energy Commission has to be involved in every step, every plan, every decision that's made. You almost have to go through the government filters, and not just the U.S. government, but the UN, because they have a lot of power in that regard as well. However, thorium salt reactors is something we've been talking about for decades now, and I'm just waiting for someone to actually do it. Because it's just not radioactive the same way that uranium is, and it's
Well, how many
much.
grids need to go off before they actually do any of these things that they keep talking about? Because
Yeah,
I just hear these concepts being made all the time, but I don't see any of it actually being made.
I remember there was someone talking about some kind of, it was supposedly it was a conspiracy theory some 7-8 years ago, that someone had developed a way to actually have some kind of silver power generation. It would be silver with electrons running through it and actually glowing brilliantly in a globe with solar panel like stuff around the globe, absorbing the energy, the photons, and turning them into electrons. And I can't remember where I heard that, or someone actually brought that to me. But that, of course, is off the table too, even though there was, I believe it was a university that had actually done a study with it and found that there was a lot of promise with it, and that silver, used properly, could actually bring a lot of electricity itself. Keep in mind, though, gang, when you're holding on to that silver or gold coin, you have stored energy there. So that's another very important aspect of gold and silver. That's not true when you're holding a Federal Reserve note. There's very little energy stored in that.
Absolutely. And I just want to circle back to the nuclear energy. I had done a deep dive on silver in terms of what it's used for nuclear reactors. And I found like the Westinghouse design for a pressure water reactor, which is the most common one used worldwide. I think it accounts for like 60% of the market of nuclear reactors. It uses between 2,500 to 5,000 kilograms of silver in the control rods. So like 80,000, 160, 100, yeah, 160,000 ounces, troy ounces of silver per these control rods. Now, control rods are the things that go into the reactor to stall the reaction. So if you don't want a Chernobyl situation to occur where the thing melts up, you throw these control rods in, it absorbs all the excess neutrino energies, and you don't melt down. So these are essential, but the rub of the situation is they wear down over time.
Mm-hmm.
So the average suggestion is every 8.5 years, these control rods are taken out of the machine. They're irradiated. So there is about 415 years of radiation that needs to just pass time before people can use the silver again. So there's a ton of silver, I surmise, in these tombstone, bunkers that they have for radiation, just sitting there, waiting for the day where it can actually be used again. And we've been using nuclear energy for a long time at this point. I wouldn't say it's been 100 years, but it's getting close to that. How much silver has actually been irradiated and taken off the market, or not even factored in, it's been taken off the market because it's still technically there. It's just no one can touch it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's concerns there, and I'm not even talking just about land reactors, because military uses reactors for their subs, for their aircraft carriers, and these things presumably do use the PWR. I know the latest ones are using more of a liquid metal reactor. They're kind of phasing out the silver reactors. But yeah, that's where it kind of stands for the last several decades, and I'm concerned about that, Silverbat.
Yeah, you just educated me. I had no idea silver was using control rods. I always thought they were graphite.
No, so that's the cheap version that was used in Chernobyl and whatnot, and that's why it melted up, because they use very unsuperior parts. Now, because of the nuclear commission, like you brought up, they make sure that everything is using the best of everything, so that we don't have that kind of situation where something happens because of just the cheap parts being used.
Yeah, that's a good point. No one wants radioactive silver in their stash, though. That's for sure.
Right? Get a Geiger counter. I was reading a study out of, I think it was Bulgaria, where they were finding their silver coins were irradiated.
Yeah.
So
usually though,
China might be, refining their nuclear control rods down and sending it to Western countries. Maybe it would be fun to have a YouTube channel just test the various silver that's out there and see how much it gives you on was it Scobles or no, that's heat. What is
I forgot what it was.
It'll come back to me later. The radiation thingy, the denomination.
Geiger counter.
Yeah, that's the device, but it measures in something.
Oh, counts per minute.
Right, but there's this word. I'll think about it. There's a word for specific radiation.
Oh, yeah, there's gamma. There's alpha, theta, beta.
Not the words I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think I know what you're looking for too, and the word escapes me as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that would be a terrible story if it somehow ended up in, someone's YouTube channel where some guy is literally saying, "Yeah, my Chinese panda stack gave me cancer."
Yeah.
So that's the last thing all of us want to hear. Go ahead.
It's a good way to get rid of the stackers in the U.S. and the West. Getting them silently. Your hair's falling out because you fucking bought a panda.
Yep.
You're like, oh, I got a good deal on this. I got $5 off.
That's exactly what happened to Jeffrey Christian.
It is possible. It is possible.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I know. I knew that was a joke too. But the point's not lost on me. Basically, there's lots of silver out there that can be recovered, but at what cost? In fact, there might be a way to accelerate, the taking away, basically the radioactivity from that silver, with boron sand or, something strange like that. I'm not a chemist, but maybe there's a way to do that. And once silver is risen to a certain price, maybe it's recoverable from those control rods. You never know.
I think a really good idea would be to come out with some sort of bond, like, hey, I'll sell you
radioactive silver.
Yeah. But you can't have it for 400 years. So this is going to stay in your family, and you can, come collect it on this date.
I don't know, Josh, you are illuminated indeed, but I just think of all the derivatives they'll be creating off of that bond. And before long, the radioactive silver market will be worth, $6 quadrillion.
Right. If you give them a mile, or you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yep, that's right.
You're in trouble now, Josh, for that. You just created a new derivative market. Thanks.
Yes, you did, Josh. Right on this show too. So you won't be wealthy from it. Because a bank will take that idea.
Of course.
But circling back to the legislation, the gold and silver legislation, I think it's really, really important for people to consider that aspect of the gold and silver story. Whether they're stacking or not is irrelevant at this point. This is really more about keeping your freedom. Can we talk a little bit about social credit scoring, the digital currency they're using in China?
Yes. I love it.
Okay, because let's talk about facial recognition for a second here, because this is the latest, freshest story, even though it's about a month and a half old. It came out of China. Now, everyone knows they're putting up security cameras everywhere in China. They're doing it here in the United States. Beware. And government grants are paying for it, by the way. So they call them flock cameras. They're license plate readers. No, they're reading license plates, but they're also looking at people's faces. So in China, above every single retail store, there's a camera that actually has control of the magnetic locks of the doors. So you walk up to, you're in China, you're a Chinaman or a China woman. You walk up to your favorite store, that sells, whatever they buy in China, Chinese widgets. And so they stand and they look at the camera like this. And the camera does facial recognition. And then it goes into their social credit score to find out whether or not they're worthy enough to enter that store. And the mag lock will release on that door so they can go in and do some shopping. They're doing it in grocery stores too, gang.
No, that's a big concern of mine, but I have hope, Pat, because in the West, we have a lot of issues with, various things, but specifically when it comes to facial recognition, it has a big trouble with gender, recognizing gender. And there's a lot of transsexual people that would not like that if they were misgendered. So I think that may not work out in the West.
The transgender agenda does not work in a communist society. That whole movement would disappear very rapidly. Yeah. And so, and I submit to you guys once again, I don't want to be a downer. We should, make sure that we end on a positive note, or at least something funny. But the fact is, we are transitioning into a form of communism in the United States of America right now, and I can prove it. And it's happening right before our eyes, but most of us are too busy doing other things to actually recognize what's going on. The 10th Amendment was put in for the states to save themselves from this tyranny, and gold and silver legislation is part of that. I'm known for working with SEPA, the Second Amendment Preservation Act in the state of Missouri. You guys can look that up as well. We're being sued by the federal government over it. They've technically overturned it right now, but we're working to get to the Supreme Court with it next summer. In fact, we'll be heard next month in the 8th Circuit. And this is, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to be a downer. I don't want people to be depressed after I don't get invited to a lot of parties, as you guys can imagine. But it's up to you and me to stop this from happening. In order to stop that from happening, we've got to stop giving our energy to DC. We got to recognize it for what it is, an out-of-control circus with corporations holding the reins. That's what DC is. You and I don't have any power there. So for gold and silver legislation to back the dollar again, for instance, there was a movement for that. That is worthless. That'll never happen. The Federal Reserve won't let it happen. They're one of the corporations holding the reins.
What do you think the chances are that states so we're the United States. What's the chances of it stop being united?
I think the chances are very, very likely that we will stop being united. I think, there's a lot of words for it, but I think we're going to form several countries out of the United States of America. I think that's,
and by the way, will be BlackRock owned. That's what I'm considering.
The easiest way to actually, connect these threads in a way that makes sense is red states, and blue states. But I think it'll be a little more complicated than that, because I think the major controllers of the countries that are born out of the United States will be nations. China will own a certain part of the United States. Canada will own part of it. Mexico will own part of it. I think that's probably Russia will own part of it. Because this is, and I know that sounds really strange, particularly to bring out on a show about gold and silver. But the fact of the matter is, when the world reserve currency goes, when the dollar implodes, we are ground zero for that financial devastation right here in the United States of America.
Well, that's
everyone's going to hurt. I'm sorry, say that.
It's all by design. We've got the plan ahead of time from the Fourth Industrial Revolution people themselves, the World Economic Forum, and they said that the United States is going to not be the world power it was. Simple fact. And a handful of countries are going to have the power of the world.
Agreed. And so what it comes, and by the way, this is taking leaps of logic and putting things together and just thinking about it. And every once in a while, if you pay really close attention to the news, you'll get new puzzle pieces, that you can add, basically for the big picture projection of what America becomes. And one of the things that doesn't escape my attention is all this foreign ownership of land all over the United States being allowed, of course, by the United States government and by governors throughout this nation, and governors who are stopping that process. And by the way, I believe Governor Huckabee Sanders, in Arkansas, was the very first governor to literally stop that process in Arkansas. In fact, all foreign-owned land is now been, basically purchased back and is owned by United States citizens now.
Which makes sense, right? Like, why would you have like a Trojan horse situation?
Look at California. Look no further than California. California is a perfect example of a state that literally its best assets are foreign owned now. Its farmland is foreign owned.
China.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. It is China. And also, too, I would submit to you the same thing is happening in Washington State. It's like China will own Washington, Oregon, and California in the new America. And by the way, I'm not a psychic or anything. This is just putting together puzzle pieces based on land purchases.
Another big land purchaser of late has been Bill Gates buying up all the farmland.
That's correct. And Bill Gates,
huge problem.
Yep. And Bill Gates is Bill Gates is a very interesting guy. And I'm not going to talk about Microsoft or anything else like that, because Bill Gates was much more of, buying other people's ideas and refining them and then selling them. Bill Gates was not a genius by any stretch of imagination, but he was one of the most aggressive, in fact, if not the most aggressive tycoon in the IT industry when it was in its infancy.
A lot of people believe that he just made his money from Microsoft, but that's not correct at all. His father, he comes from old money.
Mm-hmm. And his father,
William Gates Sr., if I remember correctly.
Yeah. In fact, his father is the reason we have Planned Parenthood today. His father actually funded that entire operation with Margaret Sanger.
A founding member of that.
Yep. And so
he's a great guy.
Yeah. I mean, it was eugenics. Eugenics was very, very big back when we started learning a lot more about the cellular structure of the human body in the 1920s and 1930s. Basically scientists were working on this, saying we can make a better human with a better understanding of this information. But what we can do to try to make a better human right now is we need to stop this race from existing, and this race, we need to get this race out of the gene pool because they have inferior traits. And so that was the start of the eugenics movement. Bill Gates' dad was very much involved in that. Bill Gates is involved in that right now. And you're right, where he started with a lot of money and he inherited money when, his parents passed away. I get that. But the deal is with Bill Gates, he made an enormous amount of money with Microsoft, but it was through investing in the stock market with the amount of money he was getting from Microsoft. And then on top of which, he made $20 billion in pharmaceuticals, and that was up until right before COVID. So he made $20 billion in profit for investing in pharmaceuticals, and vaccine companies.
Right.
So a lot of people, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, this main vaccine that he came out with for India for polio was backed by the Rotary Club, and it ended up giving a new strain of polio to the world.
It did.
The opposite of what they wanted to accomplish.
Correct. But you see, there's a lot of people in power that agree with Bill Gates, that agree with his father, that are in, everything from Skull and Bones to Bilderberg. They want a different human race.
And that's mostly because they're ashamed of themselves. I don't think we need to recreate the human race, Pat. I think the human race is great on its own. If you take the uniqueness out of the human race, what is left?
Yep. Well, no, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying that that's not what they want. They want to integrate the human race with technology. Mm-hmm. And this is a big part of their goal. And this goes beyond eugenics.
Right.
And
The
this is the kind
merging
of
of
stuff, and by the
synthetic and
way,
biological.
yes, absolutely. But I will warn you right now, being a man who is heavily censored, and I'm heavily censored, that we're treading on territory that YouTube may not like.
Well, we'll
So,
find out.
okay, I
Hey, we'll
understand.
test it. Let's test the waters.
Okay, gotcha. So, transhumanism is something that is a very, very big movement for the powers that be. Remember, we were talking about the corporations that control everything?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Transhumanism is a very, very big part of their plan. These people don't want to die. They want to live forever, and they're trying to figure out how to do it. And they realize that they're going to need technology because they cannot extend biology beyond a certain point because of the DNA of human cells and the telomeres that make up the tie points for DNA, basically DNA strands. So
Right.
you're
They
going to have
weaken
to
over
involve.
time.
That's correct. In fact, theoretically, right now, as it stands, you might be able to get a human to about 180 years old with all the best technology that's available without actually replacing parts of their body with technology. Now, that's theoretically possible. Is it likely? Not so much. I mean, look at those people. Like David Rockefeller made it to 104. George Bush Sr. made it to, was he 98?
Mm-hmm.
So they're pushing the 100s, which the average person doesn't get to. And by the I'm going to change my thought process because this will definitely get you taken down from YouTube. But there are specific things they do to get there that are not necessarily medicine. And so certain practices and procedures and things like that. But they're really pushing hard because what it is, it's about defying death. And by the way, I know we've gone way, way, way far away from gold and silver right now. We'll circle back. So
Yeah.
I promise. Okay. If you want to live forever, right now, the leading technology for life extension is involving basically a lot more tech than it is pharmaceutical, but it started with pharmaceutical. So that's what they're looking to do. But do they want bodies, or do they just want their mind to go on, their brain? And that's where the tech comes in. So they realize the bodies will fail and they will become frail and ultimately prevent their brain from continuing to exist.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Now, I think I know where you're going with this, Pat. And let me just interject real quick with a little story. So there was this group, I would call it a kind of a cult, kind of like a new age religion that came out of the 70s, led by a guy named Claude Forlham. He goes by the name of the prophet Rael now. And there's this group of called Raelians that this leader believes that he had aliens called the Elohim come and talk to him in the 70s while he was running a car magazine or whatever, and they had told him the secret of immortality was going to be via cloning and consciousness transfer. And I've been looking into this a little bit, and in like the early 2000s in Florida, they actually accomplished the cloning. There was a little baby Eve that came out. There was a big news about all of it, and it just sort of disappeared after the fact. Like it just got swept under the rug. So we know that human cloning is possible since the early 2000s at the very least. So now they're only working on consciousness transfer.
that's
And
correct.
I saw last year the Raelians honored Elon Musk as an honorary member of the Raelian organization or whatever for
The
his work on
Raelian Society.
for his work on the Neuralink. But it kind of makes sense. Like if you have an interface for the human brain, that's the first step to actually being able to transfer that consciousness over to say another vessel. And Conrad, he got me into the show called Altered Carbon, and it's basically that
It's the best.
show where the premise is they live in a society where they have this little thing in the back of their neck that downloads all their memories, and it can be either uploaded to a satellite and then initialized into what they call sleeves, but it's really just another human body that has this implant in the back of their neck that they can interface all the memories to.
Yep.
So in a nutshell, that is the premise, of what the elite are trying to do, which is live forever, maybe even through consciousness transfer to a human clone body or whatnot. And then all I can think to myself is this is going to be very expensive, and it's going to be locked out of most people.
It's going to take a lot of silver.
It's going to take all the silver to do that. Well, and then of course the rich people are going to have the best model avatar, deluxe body that's going to be bulletproof. It's going to have full healing capabilities. It's going to be the best. It's going to be the best body. And then all the poor people are going to be stuck with these like 90-year-old models that
right. We could even go a little step further. Like all the elite have the biggest penises, and the poor have the smallest penises.
They're so small you can barely see them. Like that's how it's going to be.
Well, and I'm not even sure how gold and silver can help with that particular problem, but I will tell you this, Josh, that's exactly what I was going to. And it's not just, the cloning technology, God only knows where they're at right now because they'll never tell us. But I'll tell you this, the ability to record and store a human brain is a top priority right now, a top priority for the people who control the world. That's very important to them.
It really begs a horrifying question, though, of once your consciousness is transferred to, say, a hard drive, are you then stuck on that hard drive forever?
I don't know. By the way, it's interesting you should bring it up that way because first and foremost, I'm just going to announce to everyone I'm a Christian myself. I'm a believer. And if you look at the book of Enoch, because Jesus said what it would be like in the end times, it would be like it was in the days of Noah. Genesis chapter 6 doesn't have a lot of data on what was going on in the world. It has enough, for the average person to understand that the world was extremely corrupt. But if you look at the book of Enoch, which is not in the Bible, it actually covers stuff like we're talking about right now. That kind of weird stuff was going on in the days of Noah, and it was never covered in Genesis. But the weird genetic stuff going on, and the gene splicing and all that stuff is actually detailed, basically from 4,400 years ago in the book of Enoch. And it's venerated too, because Jesus did quote from Enoch 2 times, in the book of Revelation. So it should have been in the Bible.
Now, refresh my memory about Enoch. That's where they're talking about the Nephilim, correct?
Well, yeah, that was the Nephilim were, of course, the giants. Earthborn is what Nephilim means. They're earthborn, and they're permanently on Earth. In fact, if you want to get into some of the spiritual nature of this is where the demons come from, is the disembodied spirits in the Nephilim, because they're not allowed in heaven and they're not allowed in hell. They're only allowed on Earth. And so the demon possessions that go on are actually the disembodied spirits, supposedly, of the Nephilim. But you're right, Nephilim and the giants, the same thing, existed during the days of Noah. That is absolutely correct. In fact, that's the reason Noah and his family were saved. If you read that in the Bible, Noah was perfect in his generations. He didn't have any giant or Nephilim DNA in his gene pool.
When I think about all these rich people trying to clone themselves and toss themselves into a new body and stuff, it is odd that all of them they're promoting that we gotta get rid of the population and lower it overall, but they themselves have like 20-30 kids. Are those just the little vessels that are going to be, instead of actually cloning themselves, they're like, oh well, I got a biological kid right here, I could jump into that whenever I want. That could be the transfer mechanism that they're first trying to do. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that is what many people who are into the cult of satanic worship believe. Yes, they do transfer into their kids.
Okay, that makes sense then.
I don't want to go any further than that, because that's an area I've never traversed with YouTube before. I don't know how much of that they want or would allow.
Well,
Yeah, we're hitting a
this is
lot of
all in
fascinating
Minecraft.
stuff on this. I love it.
Yeah, all in
We're-
Minecraft, and
this is-
honestly, I think it would be really fun to just do a whole crazy conspiracy episode to see how far we could push YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah,
oh, and
YouTube doesn't like me, by the way. They really dislike me personally. Personally. So, but they can't get rid of me. All they can do is make me look very unpopular on my own channel.
Right.
So,
Like I think the go-to thing in people say they, I say Illuminati. So Illuminati, instead of it takes a lot of work to actually discredit somebody to
sure.
destroy their whole life. And it's probably easier just to make that guy go crazy.
Or make them just irrelevant,
Yeah.
and irrelevant, relatively speaking. That is what YouTube and censorship has done to me. YouTube and Facebook have not been kind to me. Before Elon took over Twitter, Twitter was not kind to me. And I don't swear, and I don't say anything of a sexual nature. I just bring up facts and pose questions. And Discord got rid of me. This was in 2022, May of 2022. Lost my Discord account along with a very popular Discord server, 2 Discord servers actually, and decided that we'd outstayed our welcome because I had posted, or I didn't post, but one of the members posted the links to the Pfizer drops, and that was against the rules in Discord. That was not, I don't know if you guys knew that. That was actually, they put it in their terms of service shortly after they just deleted me and my servers. Is that was against the rules to post the Pfizer drops in Discord.
That's
To
so
my
crazy.
knowledge, you had to have been reported though. Discord doesn't do anything unless it gets reported.
I'm sure it was reported.
Yeah.
So because I had a lot of detractors.
Yeah, there's someone fucking with you basically.
Yep.
that got in there.
I'm sure I know who that was.
Yep. So, but years and years and years of building up this massive following on Discord.
Well, this is going to be the problem, man, going forward. Because I mean, we talked about CBDCs and social credit scores and stuff, and we're all going to be.
They can wipe you out.
Yeah, I mean, we're all going to be on the teat of the government or some form of UBI, most likely.
It's poisoned milk.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and anything we're doing is up for grabs at that point. Like a video from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that might give you that strike like you were talking about, or might get your social credit score lowered because you didn't take it down from 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, in the new society that they're building, believe it or not, everyone's thinking about, it's the digital dollar. It's going to be our currency. That's what we're going to trade. You know what corporations trade? Information.
Of course.
Data.
That metadata. Gotta have
That's
that
correct.
juicy data. What is he gonna buy next?
That's right.
Data is the new oil for the modern age.
And it absolutely is. And this is something that a lot of people need to consider when it comes to gold and silver, because you have a lot of past that's on the internet, and how much of that is going to hurt you in your social credit score, making it virtually impossible for you to get into the grocery store or in the store of your choosing, like people are dealing with in China right now. So this stuff will be used against you. Keep in mind, everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, doesn't matter where you go, all of this is being stored to actually, and will be used in an algorithm to actually develop a threat assessment of you and a digital credit score of you going forward in the future. And of course, how you get the best credit score, you agree with the government on everything. Don't protest anything.
Do you know how you get the worst credit score, Pat?
I do. I do, because apparently I have it.
So we'll just follow you, Pat. We'll all be in the same junkyard trying to grab food and stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Can't go into the normal market anymore.
That's right. We'll be eating year-old French fries, and stuff like that.
It's still good. They're still good.
They're fine. They're fine.
What I'm saying is gold and silver can potentially get you out of that situation, so you don't even have to worry about this in the first place.
Exactly. I want to be able to get goats.
Well, once again, you set the standard a little while ago. I believe it was an ounce of silver for 3 goats.
That seems fair to me.
Okay.
That's fair.
And
that's fair.
Yeah, I'm not even going to argue or dispute it. I'm going to actually congratulate you for setting that standard there, because it got some folks that are watching the show right now out of the nominal confusion.
Right? And I'll be honest with you, goats are horrifying. I actually recently have had a real life experience with goat, and they're very dangerous. And for some reason, I'm very attractive for a goat. I've never understood that. Right. I have my girlfriend, or my ex-girlfriend now, she bought a screaming goat, those types of just, the neighborhood loves it, in the morning kind of thing. And every time I go in there to feed it, because she's been on vacation, and I try to get fucked, or he tries to fuck me. So in the end, it may not be worth it for three. But
But at least one. At
the
least one.
psychological harm is negative, but the value of the goat is true.
Okay. I want to thank you for expressing that in the granularity you did. Because I myself have no experience with goats whatsoever. I was intrigued thinking I could get 3 goats with an ounce of silver, and now I'm starting to second guess that.
Yeah, second guess.
You can get the 3 goats, but the psychological harm is for a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. Is it worth that 1 ounce of silver to have the psychological scarring?
It's very debatable.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was actually looking up when because I think the movies that we normally think of when we think of the most, I love the dystopian. I'm a doomer with slight hope in general, and we always think about Idiocracy and stuff as the key movie that where corporations have taken over everything, government's completely failed, but everyone's just going along with it like lemmings. But there is another movie I think that's even better at portraying this, and that's Wall-E. Wall-E is one of the best movies that's made by Pixar. Now, conveniently, both of these movies were made around the same time, right before the 2008 collapse. So, Idiocracy was made in 2006, and Wall-E was made in 2008. But they were probably working on that for like 2 years to actually finish all the animation. But watch Wall-E the next weekend or the next time you guys have a chance, because it completely shows how, and it talks about AI. It's all AI that's controlling the humanity at this point, and it's run by a corporation in the sky. They're in space and they're just hanging out in space, waiting for Earth to become habitable again. But it's awesome. It shows everything that we're talking about, everything that
there's
we're talking about. It's so cool.
there's another movie, Logan's Run, where the world
Oh
is run by
yeah.
AI as well. And in fact, that one even directly reflects some of the things that are happening now with lifespans being shortened. And that's something I can't talk about too much, because that's something that I've gotten strikes on YouTube for. But let's just say, be very, very wary of doctor's recommendation sometimes for vaccines, is all I'm saying.
There was some like crazy movie too. I think it was called In Time or something. But everyone had knew exactly how long they had to live once they hit like
yes
20.
my wife and I
so
watched
good.
that, and we've recommended to people, but I've forgotten the name of it, because you work for time.
Yes,
And
yes, you
and
pay
so
with time, but you do everything with time.
that's
It was
right.
crazy.
Yep. And one more movie I'd like to recommend to your folks, although it's somewhat surreal, and that is called A Clockwork Orange. Have you guys ever seen this?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Call it
Okay.
classic.
And the
Amazing.
reason I bring it up is because what's happening in society today, particularly the culture of the United States, is that political dissidents must be put in prison, right? And we have to get rid of all the violent people from the prisons because they're consuming too much space. But the political dissidents are the real threat to the powers that be. So they're not worried about the violent people, because the violent people aren't threatening the government. They're just threatening the everyday people out there. They don't care about the everyday people. They're worried about the government, and the political dissidents pointing out all the wrongdoing by the government is the main problem. Now, that's one of the subplots of A Clockwork Orange, but it is a big subplot to that movie. But also, if you read the book, because I've read the book as well, gets into pedophilia, normalizing pedophilia, with the government, actually.
Why is that always the case? Why does that always happen?
Well, that's also the case with Brave New World.
Yes, it
They're
is.
re-engineering the population, and the
Mhm.
kids would frolic in the field naked, play with each other, and I still don't understand why I had to read that.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
it's
no,
crazy.
you're absolutely right with A Brave New World. Conditioning like no other. I mean, actually, for a book that was written in the 60s, which I believe Brave New World was, Aldous Huxley, I
Hmm.
think is the author. Um, teaching them pain, anything beautiful, anything natural, and they associate with pain, and they tell you in the book exactly how they conditioned the kids, so that they wouldn't leave the cities. They were afraid, naturally, subconsciously, afraid of actually going into nature and leaving the city. And I suspect that, something similar will happen in our civilization as well.
Well, it's not dissimilar to what's going on with the Israelites.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of bad things are happening, folks. And we're in the dystopian part of and we're going to end it, hopefully on a really light note, joke around and everything. But the fact of the matter is, it's up to each and every one of us to literally keep and maintain our freedoms or to get them back. The government won't do it for you. So don't look to the federal government to actually fix things in the United States. The solutions are going to come from your states. So be involved with your state government, your local government, your county, and your city government. Be involved on that level.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people out there probably think, what can I do about the
Mm-hmm.
situation? They see themselves very small, that
Yep,
they're not able to affect change on a macro level, but they're completely wrong because
that's
so
correct.
few people participate in this process
Mm-hmm.
that if you actually get off your ass and do something, you will affect something
Cheers,
because
mate.
it
You are
is the
so right.
it is the absolute fact. And if just people have that courage and feel empowered by that, please just feel empowered by that. Because if you really want to cause some chaos, just do something. And the government will put you on a list and you'll be among good people.
That's correct. And by the way, I can give you examples of stuff that most people don't think you can do, and I've done. And I've gotten actually a lot of stuff done in Missouri. One of the things we work on is stopping unnecessary school bonds because we're talking about property taxes here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is local level stuff, guys. Once again, I don't mess with DC. I talk to folks in DC from time to time, but I don't really do anything with them. And this isn't a disparagement of certain individuals in DC. There's certain people in DC I like, but there's not enough good people in DC to fix DC. That's what I mean by that. And it's going to take many election cycles to get enough good people in DC. So don't look for hope in DC. Don't look for good things to happen. Don't think, Trump's going to get elected in 2024 is going to turn the ship around. It doesn't work that way
We
because
already went through that 4 years
correct.
of hoping and hopium, and the Rubicon was going to be crossed. It never happened. It won't happen now.
That's right. Thank you, Josh. So I'll drop that one for now because the focus on getting stuff done in your state. What would you say if one person can stop a school bond from going through?
What exactly is a school bond for those?
That's Remember I was talking about something on the ballot that people vote on whether or not their taxes go up.
Mhm.
In some states, it's called a referendum. In some places, it's referred to as a bond. But basically, what it is your local school district wanting more money.
Okay.
Now, they have different reasons for wanting money. Sometimes they're good reasons. Sometimes they're bad reasons. Mostly they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
So since reasonable people will disagree on this to a certain extent, but it is my opinion that the public school system has utterly failed in the United States of America on many levels.
I don't think anyone would argue with that.
Actually, no, I get detractors and arguments all the time on Twitter on that one. Trust me.
Oh
Really?
yeah, that's.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised because most, rich people send their kids to private school, and this is a well-known fact. So if they're sending their kids to private school, what's wrong with public school?
Yep, that's right. Well, rich people can afford to put their kids in a better education system.
Mm-hmm.
So private is by default, and in fact, you can look at testing scores in whatever state. But in standardized testing, private school kids fare much better in standardized tests, much, much better. They get better grades. They do better in testing. They're just, if you want to use the term smarter or more knowledgeable than public school kids, I believe that would be an accurate assessment. I wouldn't argue with it. However, I think that giving more money to a failed public school system that literally controls how much money they take from you every year in order for the privilege to own a home in that district. Now, keep in mind, property taxes are unethical. Let's talk about that for a second first, because that's tied directly to the public schools. So you own a house in Texas or wherever you live, right? Mm-hmm. You own it, right? That's your house. You're a home owner, right?
Right.
Not so much. If you don't pay the yearly taxes on that home, arbitrary taxes that you pay through the county, then they will, by force, remove you from your home and give it to someone who will pay the taxes. So you don't own homes in the United States. Well, there are some places in the United States. I believe Florida doesn't have property tax or personal property tax.
That's not true. I have to pay taxes to the town.
Okay, gotcha. I can't remember, but there are maybe about 3 or 4 states that don't have property taxes.
Out of 50.
Yes, that's correct. Out of 50.
Maybe New Hampshire, since they're always live free or die.
Yeah, maybe that's New Hampshire might be one of them. You might be right. So at any rate, we don't own our homes. We lease our homes from the government. The government owns them. And you can prove this by not paying your taxes and seeing what happens to you. And usually what happens is your sheriff will actually come and with forcibly remove you from your home if you don't pay your taxes, even if your home's paid off and you don't own any money in the bank, and it's yours. You think free and clear. Nope. The government still owns your home. So this is an unethical tax, particularly when it comes to people who are on fixed incomes, who absolutely cannot go out and make more money when their property taxes go up, so they can afford that additional property tax. Elderly people are often, and disabled people are often chased out of their homes because they can't afford the property tax. That's how unethical this is. And by the way, we could go into personal property tax too. Boats, cars, RVs, trailers, stuff like that.
Everything is
same.
Taxed.
Yep. Same concept.
Well, it's just a big push to get everyone out of being able to own anything, and then they rent and then they're happy.
That's right.
So it's all good.
That's right. But what I'm going to talk to right now is, for what I deal with in Clever, Missouri, is 80% of what I pay in property tax and personal property tax goes to the school. 80%. So they're the biggest chunk by far.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's fucking crazy.
And when they play fast and loose with basically I don't want to say a stupid population, but I will say an uninformed population with their numbers and shell games they play, and they're asking for money for things that are not absolutely necessary, and they're providing a very poor education. I'm likely to say no. But what I like to do is educate people exactly what they're doing with their finances and what they intend to do in the shell games they're playing with the existing monies they have. And so I will expose that, and then people will go out and vote no. And I've done it twice, and I'm about to do it a third time. So that's what I'm talking about. One guy can stop a school bond from going through. Now, if the school was on the up and up and was Embley Post and was true and accurate with all their accounting practices, and we're asking for reasonable amounts of money to do, things that have to be done with the school, I would step out of the way.
That just sounds like the delusion for me, because that never happens.
That's right. That's right. But there are a lot of people who think that whatever the school wants, they should do it for the kids.
Yeah, I hate using the kids for the scapegoat.
That's
They're
correct.
always used for the scapegoat.
We
need to take away guns. Oh, look at Sandy Hook.
That's right.
Got to think of the kids.
To take away the guns, do it for the kids. fund the school system, do it for the kids.
I remember in school, like it was a long time ago, but there was a club for shooting, like a club where they would all the kids would get together with their BB guns or their whatever guns and do target practice. And this was acceptable for kids to go and take their guns to school. Now, as soon as I got into middle school, that totally went or the high school rather, that went array with all the Columbine stuff that happened. But that was the jumping off point where I think, as soon as Columbine happened, now everything is about the kids. We have to spend all this money on the kids to keep them safe. And it was just one isolated incident.
Mm-hmm. And that actually translates really well to a lot of different things. Like, for instance, how do you tug on the heartstrings of an American population to get even reasonable people understanding why the Second Amendment is there in the first place, reflecting a natural right to self-defense, to turn on literally a natural right and actually something that should subconsciously exist in every human being, the right to defend yourself? How do you get people to turn on that? You kill kids. You go into movie theaters and you kill kids. You go into schools and you kill kids. And you set up gun-free zones and don't repeal that process so that the shooters actually have a safe place to go to kill as many kids as possible. And by the way, we're on treacherous territory with YouTube again.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Well, I know from experience. Here's the guy who kept getting strikes on this. I've been talking about the crime in St. Louis, and I'm literally, they gave me a strike on that one. They said I'm encouraging racism, even though I was using FBI statistics for my evidence.
Oh, you can't say that. That's a no sentence.
Yeah.
Well,
so
13% of people would agree.
Yeah, that's right. But this is literally the society we're dealing with. And those who literally find themselves in a position where they think the government may be accurate, the guns may be the problem, and that it's not society, it's not the hearts of men, it's not what we teach people in public schools, it's not the hopelessness we have given Generation Z, because they have been screwed so badly, they will never own a home, they will never have their part of the American dream ever. That's not it. It's the guns, stupid.
It's the guns.
And for people to believe that, literally believe that and go, you know what, they're right. If the law-abiding citizens give up their guns, then the criminals will will have a smaller stockpile of people to steal their guns from.
And therefore, the criminals get it from the government.
Yeah, they get it from the government. They get it from black markets. Criminals, if they're already a criminal, they're not going to be getting it the normal way, obviously through an FFL. But at the same time, it is very easy for anyone to get a gun, but everyone should be able to get a gun very easily with the Second Amendment in place as it is, shall not be infringed. It's talking about a natural right. They're not talking about you have that right because the founding fathers said in the Second Amendment, you have the right to bear arms. No.
All of it was put there deliberately for specific reasons.
Yeah, and it's the Declaration of Independence. You and I, as literally people on this planet, we have natural, inalienable human rights. And among those are self-defense. In nature, it happens. In nature, creatures defend themselves. They don't just sit there and take an attack they fight back as best they can.
I would say
right to self-defense.
On a micro level, that is 100% true of why the Second Amendment is in the Constitution. But I would say from a macro level, it is a huge deterrent from any invading country when the population is expected to all have guns.
What about a government that's becoming totalitarian and taking away people's rights, indeed taking away their lives?
Well, that's another thing. But when it comes down to that line of thinking, I have trouble grasping the concept of people going out of their homes with guns and marching to DC. I don't see it happening. People are too lazy.
Look no further than the Civil War. Look no further than the Revolutionary War. That's exactly what they were dealing with.
Things just haven't gotten bad enough yet.
That's correct. People aren't starving yet.
Which is crazy because it all looks like dog shit right now. Life is really incredibly hard for everyone right now. But everyone has to has to keep providing. They have to keep working their 3 to 4 jobs and working paycheck to paycheck every single month. And they're too busy and tired to see what's going on around them. They just know it sucks. But how do
the
you
culture
act?
has to change in this regard. And what you said is so important and is so accurate, Sugar Daddy. Thank you. We're dealing with people that are numbing themselves with entertainment, with, even with marijuana, because the things that they're dealing with are so incredibly bad. Take that and turn it into something positive. And in fact, if you're really studying what's going on right now, people should be angry. And you can turn that into action. And I'm not talking about the kind of action we were talking about a minute ago. I'm talking about literally making a difference in your state, making a difference in your county or your city,
Right.
and make a change for the better.
When
Yep.
you're angry, don't go out on social media and say something vitriolic that does nothing. Go ahead and take that anger and do something with it. Get out of your house, go down to your local council meeting, and see what you can do to get involved. Uh, Fortunately, the people in the Silver Squeeze movement have a mentality that's different from the normies that are out there. We understand sort of a more macro level of what's going on in the world and what we're afraid of happening, and that's why we stack. Well, that fear can be mitigated by going out and doing something to slow down that process of the fourth industrial revolution. And
Gold and silver legislation in your states. I'm telling you, gang, they fear it. They fear it. If you want to put fear in your government, actually get involved legislatively and get gold and silver legislation done in your state.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for interrupting.
I think what's great is that you pointed out early on is just get the taxes off the currency. You don't have to go full ball and get it as a currency. Just go ahead and see if you can get the taxes on it, because that helps stack more.
Well, Pat, we're at the 2 hour mark, and I know most people start drooling at this point.
Right. We're probably gonna do like a part 1 and part 2 for this, right? That probably
yes.
best.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
I can split it up. But so what would you? So we are just talking about taking action and stuff. So if you're talking to someone that knows nothing about this, because we're trying to hit people that have no idea and about anything about silver, gold, how the government works, currencies, all this stuff. We've gone through a lot of this already, so that's gonna definitely give the information that someone new would need to hear. What would you say are the steps that someone a Zoomer or a millennial should take going forward?
You bet.
We'll just bullet point it.
No problem. Actually, it's really simple. No reason to reinvent the wheel. The Missouri Freedom Initiative has been working on this. So, number one, you don't have to reinvent gold and silver legislation. It's freely available on our website, mofree.org, in our forums. In fact, I should put it on the front page. And so you can download it and electronically send it to your representative, your senator in your state, by the way, not federal. Don't worry about federal, folks. I'm talking about your state representative and your state senator that meets at your state capitol. Give it to them and tell them, do this in my state. That's all you have to do. Now, as far as supporting this, once it's a bill, to get it through the process, follow us. See how we do it in the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Watch the videos that we make. Look at all the postings we do in our blog. And actually, we'll show you step by step exactly how we're doing it here. And so some states didn't have to fight so hard. Tennessee got a depository with a song and a dance. I mean, honest to God, we're fighting in large numbers in Missouri and Tennessee. It was the governor who said, that's a good idea. Arkansas, song and a dance. Huckabee signs it. But some states, we have so much corruption, so much corporatism, and so many pissing contests going on between politicians that we have to work extra hard for things. That means we have to work extra hard in understanding who we're voting for too, gang. You can't just vote for an R or a D. It's not that simple, and it hasn't been for a long time. But supporting a bill and having a grassroots movement to do it is exactly what we do. So follow our group, basically because I realize we're at the 2 hour mark. The next time we do a video, I'll take you step by step on how to build your grassroots movement. But look at us. We're doing a great job. We have thousands of people across the state that are part of the Missouri Freedom Initiative. We do not take donations. We're not that kind of organization. Your own time, your own dime is what we say. But you can make a difference in your state. Don't feel helpless when you see all the stuff going on in the national media and the international stage. Don't feel helpless. Do something about it in your state to make sure that your people in your state are somewhat, at least reasonably, protected from the tyranny that is coming from the federal government. And by the way, at least 90% of all the legislation that comes out of the federal government is totally unconstitutional. So they're not even following the Constitution. We're in a post-constitutional United States of America right now. That means your rights are not only for sale, but they're for sale over and over again, like derivatives. You know, how many times can your rights be sold to the next corporation? How many times can your information be passed from hand to hand to figure out how best to actually market to you or take away your rights, depending on who gets it? This is up to you in your state. There are things you can do to actually protect yourself and the sovereignty of yourself as a Floridian, if I'm saying it right, a Missourian, an Iowan, you know, and a New Hampshirean, or whatever they call themselves. So this is the power of the message we bring, and gold and silver is what we're working on. And it's not just gold and silver as legal tender. It's also safeguards to prevent the federal government from confiscating gold and silver in the state of Missouri. That's actually built into the legislation. We didn't even go through all the aspects of the legislation. But the big part is, of course, gold and silver is legal tender, and the state accepting it in the payment of taxes. Now, will Josh or Sugar Daddy pay taxes with gold and silver? No, they won't. But the fact that the state has to accept it if they offer it actually gives businesses the courage they need to start transacting in gold and silver. That's the purpose of it. That's the logic of it. So that's what I would recommend. But remember now, you have so much power as an individual. You have an enormous amount of power, and you use about 1% of it when you go to the ballot box and you vote. You have so much power left to do things, but guess what? That power doesn't exist in DC. It's local. That's where your power is. That's where it always has been. And people are making a difference all over the United States in individual states, and you'll never hear about it in the media. You never hear what we did with the Second Amendment Preservation Act, or the big movement that Senator Bill Eigel started across the entire United States with silver and gold as legal tender legislation. It started with him. So these are things you'll never hear about, but you've got to get involved in your state. And this is where your power is, and this is how you're going to keep your rights, is through your state. It's not going to happen through the federal government. So that's my soapbox speech. But I think, first of all, if you guys would have me back sometime, I'd love to discuss how to start a grassroots movement. You know, and no matter what state you're in.
That would be perfect.
I think that would be a great next episode, and it would teach a lot of people how to get involved in this process, which is very important. We need sound money, lobbying throughout all 50 states.
That's right.
And the more organized we are with this initiative, the better it will be to bring that awareness to the general public. And I'll even say it on the show right now. If you're listening and you are getting involved in your state, reach out to us. We will do an interview with you. We'll do our best to get this message out to as many people as possible. And we'll all support each other during this trying time. But this is the last stand for humanity. And I'm not backing down. I know Conrad won't, and I'm sure Pat, you'll rather die than see digital currency or
they can pry my silver out of my cold dead hand.
That's right. That's and I love it, man. I love what you're doing, the work. I mean, I just recently found out, not maybe only a few weeks ago or maybe a few months ago, all the work you were doing, and I was flabbergasted at how much you've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. And I'm honored that you would come on and talk with us and give the information to hopefully some new people that don't know about this. And
Mhm.
we'll do as much work as we can to get this video out and future videos out. And we're full on board to help you in any way we can, man.
Excellent. Just remember mofree.org. We're very happy to once again, we have a live stream that we do every single Saturday night at 7:30. And if there are people in other states that want to do gold and silver legislation, please join us in our live stream. Just get on our website, get on our email list, send me an email, tell me you want to be involved. And believe me, we'll give you one heck of an education and help get you started. So, but once again, it all starts with, basically mofree.org. We are working it and we're helping other states as much as we can as well. It's not just for Missouri, it's for every state and for every person.
Well, hell yeah. Thank you, Pat, for all the work that you do. And I look forward to seeing more states take up the duty, their rights to have gold and silver as money again. Simple as that.
That's right. And it's God's money. It's our money. It's no nation's money. Gold and silver is found in every country in the world. That means it's everyone's money. And quite frankly, you can't turn on a printing press and create more gold or silver coins.
Thankfully.
No, they'll try.
I'm sure they will.
They can shave it, they can make it an alloy, but they can't they can't go for the full run of it.
They'll NFT it. That's fine. They'll just they'll just make some NFTs of every gold coin and silver coin that exists. That's what they're going for. But we're at the end here. Thank you so much again, Pat. Thank you, Illuminated A, for hanging out. And I'll have all of Pat's links and everything so you can get a hold of him later on. You can find out the schedules of his shows that he has. Everything that you need to know about what Pat is doing, you will be able to get a hold of it in the video description or in the tweet or in the Reddit post. We don't know where it's going to be. It's going to be everywhere. So you're going to be able to find it everywhere, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. The Silver Degen Club, Wall Street Silver, pre-recording, live stream, maybe. I don't know. It's one of those things. Thank you so much. And remember, everyone, stay Degen.